You're listening to Chillworthy,
a podcast where two best friends discuss mysteries, murders, and anything in between for your enjoyment.
So if you're ready to hear some chilling and unsettling cases, you're in the right place. Happy listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Chillworthy with your hosts, Brent and Talia.
Hi, everybody.
How are you doing today?
I'm very well. How are you?
Well, the same here.
Are you happy today?
Happy-ish.
That's a Golden Girls quote, if anyone cares.
So we are doing back-to-back episodes, so Talia doesn't have any books to talk about.
Unfortunately.
But I do have fish facts to say, so everyone can rest easy, because we do have some things to talk about. So today, the same day, I am going to now talk about another resident of my 29-gallon tank.
You should name the tank. That just dawned on me when you said resident of. You should name each tank so there are locations, like they have titles, you know? You should get on that. What?
Yeah, like Atlantica.
Absolutely. Shall this be Atlantica?
Sure.
Fine.
All right.
Atlantica.
Thank
you.
Okay, so this resident is my flying fox algae eater. The one that from the last episode Talia was watching with the little Danios and he was playing around with them.
It's quite a mouthful of a name. Say that 3 times fast, you know?
Yeah. So, number 1, and again, if anybody's interested, they just have to look up flying fox algae eater. Number 1, they are often confused with another fish.
Oh.
This is Talia's spirit fish. They're often confused.
That's really what I thought you meant. I thought, oh, the poor soul. All right.
They are often confused with another fish called the Siamese algae eater. So the flying fox looks very similar to this other algae eater, but apparently you can tell them apart by their solid black stripe. So I guess Siamese algae eaters have a stripe, but it's kind of jagged and it gets faded as it goes on.
This one's Boldo all the way through. He's over by the rock.
Well, that would mean he's a flying fox.
Right.
So,
I figured it out.
Second, although they are algae eaters, they are not just algae eaters. They are omnivores.
Oh.
So even though they have a reputation for eating algae, they do not rely solely on doing this. They also eat whatever the hell they want. Biofilm.
Grassy bits.
Right. Plant matter, insect larvae, small crustaceans, which could be a problem for my other residents in there. But
no, are those? No. That's the shrimp?
Yes. I was keeping that a secret, but forget that. So yeah, I also have shrimp. Maybe we'll talk about them next time.
I will not say what my favorites are. I did not give that away.
No, you didn't. Third, they can be slightly territorial and aggressive.
Oh, shit.
So when they start off as juveniles, they are pretty chill. But once they get older, they become territorial, but mainly from their own species. Like they want to stake out a piece of the tank or a piece of their environment that is for them against the other flying foxes.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Are you not going to get more than him?
I doubt it.
Yeah, because of that?
Not necessarily because of that, but I would like some other types of algae eaters as well.
Well, what are some others?
Well, you'll learn about that later, I guess. Fourth fact, they enjoy very fast-moving water, which, I don't have a very fast-moving water here, but I have noticed that he does like to hang out on one of the plant leaves that are kind of close to the surface right in front of where the filter dumps in, and he has no problem staying in that current. Like he just hangs out there. So
fiddles about. Good for him. A strong swimmer.
Well, speaking of strong, the last fact is that they are strong jumpers.
Oh.
They have very powerful bodies and can jump out of the tank if startled or stressed. So you should keep that in mind, please.
I am mostly staying back from gluing my face to the side of the glass. I mean, I am literally getting a little pain in my neck from staring like this. It is like hypnotizing.
Of course it is.
Oh my gosh.
It lowers blood pressure.
Does it?
I think it does.
I didn't know that.
So anyway, a secure lid is recommended for anybody thinking about keeping a flying fox in their tank. So,
Me.
thank you all for listening to today's Fish Facts.
You did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Surely.
Now, so speaking of fish facts, I guess I just am in the mood to do something water related, which is very unusual for me when it comes to my phobias.
Right.
But I decided to go a little, a little off what we've been doing lately, which is all the true crime stuff, and go into like a little bit more of a mystery that's not necessarily sea related, but sea adjacent related.
Wow.
So
Good for you going outside of your comfort zone.
well, thank you.
Surely.
So I'd never heard about this before. I researched it. So I don't know how this is going to go, but we'll give it a shot.
Okay.
So this is the mystery of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse.
Ooh, ghosts.
And it's Flannan. Flannan?
Flannan? I don't know.
Okay.
Is
well,
it Ireland?
Scotland.
Irish. Okay.
So
Oh my God, is today freaking St. Patrick's Day? No.
I think that's tomorrow.
Shit, I thought I missed it.
You didn't. All right. All right, so a little bit of background. And I'm going to say I don't even know how to pronounce these things. Eileen Moore, I guess, I don't know. It's the largest of the Flannan Isles.
Okay.
These are also known as quote-unquote seven hunters. So they're small uninhabited islands about 20 miles west of the Isle of Lewis, which I guess is like a main island of Scotland.
Okay.
So this lighthouse was built between 1895 and 1899.
Shit. Oldie.
Very. It stands 75 feet tall, and that is on the top of a 150-foot cliff.
Jeez.
So, and as most people know, lighthouses are the things that guide ships through dangerous waters. So the first time that it was lit was on the 7th of December, 1899. And it was operated by the Northern Lighthouse Board. The station was typically manned by 3, lighthouse keepers at a time. And then a 4th one would rotate on and off for onshore leave.
Uh-huh.
You got me? So there's always going to be 3 people there.
Okay.
And then the 4th one would show up, and then the first one would go away.
I see.
Then the first one would come back, and the second one would leave.
All right. Got it.
So they could go get their,
Snacks.
I was going to say go get their feet on solid ground, but sure. Or go get their tasty cakes. So this island did hold a sort of spooky reputation. Local shepherds would take that, they would take their sheep there, but they would never stay overnight
Why?
because they believed it was haunted by spirits.
Hell yeah.
So, so whatever. It was like a spooky island with a mysterious, I guess not mysterious, but a majestic lighthouse, one would say.
Okay.
I think I would absolutely, for a month, I would love to be a lighthouse keeper.
Would you?
I mean, not by myself. I'm not saying just me in the lighthouse, but with a friend or something. Hell yeah. I mean, beautiful views.
Definitely.
All you have to do is make sure the lighthouse stays on. I mean, You're not doing anything.
Not much responsibility.
No, less responsibility than those
Air
people.
traffic controllers.
Okay. Less responsibility also than those people who sit up in those high towers in the forest to watch for wildfires.
Good call.
Because, that also could semi be relaxing, but
Not so much.
So I think it would be very nice.
Well, maybe in another life you can do that.
They have Airbnbs like that.
I don't think I'd want to stay in one. I don't think they would be particularly cozy. I'd like to stay in a little cottage. Do you stay in them?
I think some of them you literally stay in them, and some of them have a little, like Pete's Dragon, I want to say, had a house next to it.
God, I loved that movie. Did we talk about that before?
I don't think
we
so.
did. Oh shit, I thought we did. That's where my dragon fixation / dinosaur obsession first began. I loved that movie. I was obsessed with him. I wanted an Elliot. I'm sure I pretended I had one.
I'm sure.
Oh my God. I loved that movie.
I'll be your candle on the water. Very sad when she lost her husband, but then he came back. Spoilers.
I wonder, I guess Disney Plus would have that, right?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Say,
I mean, those people who he escaped from, they were scary sons of bitches.
The mother, that mother scared me so much. And like,
they were dirty.
Heck
They
yeah.
had like coal on their face. Like soot.
They did.
And there was no reason for them to be sooty. You know, they were in the forest. They weren't a chimney sweep.
No, not like Bert.
Right.
God, another good movie. One of my faves. Yeah, no, you're right.
He was the opposite. He gave you the opposite feeling.
Very true.
Safe.
Dapper.
Nice.
Down to earth. Yes. Yeah, you're right, man.
So, anyway.
Right.
All right. So, back to this lighthouse, the timeline of events. So, it is December 15th, 1900.
Ugh.
There is a ship passing by. It's a steamer ship. And it's passing by the island, and they notice that the lighthouse lamp was not lit
Oh, shit.
during a stormy night.
Someone's sleeping on the job.
Well, all three of them must have been.
Yeah, I forgot there's supposed to be more than one. You explained it to me.
Yeah, I did, but you're falling asleep. That's what's happening
Oh my
here.
God, I am not falling
It's like your
asleep.
story's done, you check out.
That is not true. I'm with you.
We're going to collect ourselves again. She's looking at me like through half glazed over eyes.
I'm relaxed. I'm watching the wind.
Anyway, they noticed that it was not lit. And this is obviously a huge no-no. That's the entire reason you're there, is to make sure that these things stay lit. Because I read that even on very calm nights, those rocks and stuff, they can still be completely, I don't want to say camouflage, but just disappear into the water, the landscape, whatever, so that it doesn't have to be this crazy, storm like Ariel saves Eric, and it can just be a calm night on the water. And sometimes calm nights are worse because then there's no waves hitting the rocks to make any foam.
Good call.
So anyway, it was obviously, like I said, highly unusual that these things were not lit. And the light should have been operational, but it wasn't. So this ship reported that it wasn't lit when they passed it on December 15th. Now we get to December 18th. So this ship arrives in port.
Same ship.
Yes,
Okay.
in Leith, Leith.
Mm-hmm. I knew a Leith once. That's how I know how to say
I see. And so when they get to port, they relay this thing that they noted about the fact that this lighthouse was not functioning or was not turned on or whatever you want to say. They reported it to the Northern Lighthouse Board, who, like I told you, if you were awake, was
God.
she was awake at this point. Was when they, those are the people that oversaw this lighthouse. So, however, this warning was not promptly passed along, which doesn't surprise me.
I feel like we hear that so much. Where the hell are the bells? Ding-a-ling-ling.
It was not promptly passed along, so no immediate action was taken, even though that's so unsafe.
Yeah. Oh, that's the whole, like you said, purpose. Like, of all things to take seriously, I would sure as hell imagine it's that.
Well, you can imagine.
It was how many days later, too? Like someone...
3.
Exactly. So someone...
Precisely.
Someone should go and check things out.
Well, now we're at December 20th.
Uh-oh.
And this lighthouse board, they had a boat, obviously. The boat's name was Hesperus.
Sounds nice.
Hesperus. And it was scheduled to sail from the mainland to relieve the lighthouse crew. Because, like I said, they were on rotation. But unfortunately, bad weather delayed the trip. So rough seas in this region made it impossible for this vessel to sail as planned on the 20th. So now we're going to jump ahead again. Now, the December 15th was when the lighthouse was out. Now we're at December 26th.
No one cares, though.
So the Hesperus finally now gets to the island where the lighthouse is. And Captain James Harvey, spelled Harvie. He is the captain of the Hesperus, and he sounds the ship's horn, and he fires a flare to alert the lightkeepers that they are there. They're pulling up, hello, and they're not getting any response from the lighthouse.
Just to go back to all of this,
Yeah.
and when you think of the time frame, the era, and 1900, there's no way to communicate quickly. So, and like you said, this is the sole purpose of the lighthouse, to allow this much time to go by to not even begin the journey to get to it, to check things out, I think is so wildly irresponsible. There's no phones, there's no way to quickly
Snapchat.
Right. And what other way can these people in the lighthouse convey there's an emergency besides shutting the hell besides shutting the light the hell off? That's it. That's the only way that they can effectively communicate.
Are you sure about that, though?
Aside from the men switching on and off.
They don't have telegrams?
Flares? Yeah, but I thought
lighthouse in trouble, stop. Need help, stop.
Oh,
didn't they do that in Five Goes West? But who the hell knows when that time period took place?
You're right.
We're very uninformed.
That just made me think of Sex and the City when everything was happening with Charlotte and what the hell was his name?
Oh yeah, Charlotte.
Mother.
Mother. Stop. Seriously.
Stop. Harry's the
Bunny.
one reading it. Yeah. Oh, Bunny was a trickster.
Anyway, like I said, they get there. They get no response, even though they tooted their horn and they shot up a few flares. You would think, though, if these people are just purely in the lighthouse, they would see this without needing to hear or see a flare. They would just see them pulling up.
If they were doing their job, correct.
Right.
Yes.
So anyway, no response.
Things aren't looking good. Riddle me this. Of the rotation that would take place, the one that most recently left, do we know when that was or what he reported? Obviously, he reported things were fine. But do we know when
We don't
left
know,
last?
but he does enter the story now. His name was Joseph Moore.
Oh, so did he come back on this barge thing?
Did. Because it was his time up in the rotation. He was headed back, and then somebody else was going to leave.
Okay.
So he was put ashore alone to investigate.
Ooh,
that's nice.
Yikes. A brave soul.
How many steps do you think it was to get up to the lighthouse?
107?
Okay, specific. No, 160.
Oh, shit.
So he climbed all 160 steps to that lighthouse, and he found the lighthouse silent and empty.
Empty.
The entrance gate and the main door were closed, and inside, he discovered a few unsettling signs. So the kitchen was tidy, which is the exact opposite of my kitchen. He would have been right at home in my kitchen. He would have thought things are fine here. But there were 2 sets of oilskin rain gear I guess, which was like, what, galoshes
Their
back in the
rain
day.
jacket?
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
They were missing. And because they were missing, this meant that 2 men had gone out at some point in this storm gear.
And they didn't return. I'm listening. I'm allowed to yawn, man.
She yawns so long, closes her eyes, takes her glasses off, has no clue I'm watching and staring at her as she's doing this.
I can't
Then
see.
she puts her glasses back on and then says, and they didn't come back. No.
Oh
This
my-
episode's it's so off the rails, but whatever. Every few
We need to
months, I guess we have to be completely insane.
Absolutely. They look for it. I love how I always think to talk into it when it's not necessary. When we're not recording.
We are recording.
Oh, we are.
I've never stopped.
I didn't know that.
All right. Anyway, back on track here. So,
Okay.
all right. So he sees the kitchen is a mess. Now he sees two coats were missing. Okay, so somebody must have obviously gone out. Well, 2 people must have obviously gone out. The beds were unmade, and the fireplace had been unused for a few days.
You know what I suspect? Maybe 2.
Tell.
There was a storm. 2 went out in it, and then the 3rd stayed behind. And then the reason that there aren't like 3 pairs of rain gear missing is because the 3rd then went out after the storm because the 2 never came back, and now they met their demise. No.
Well, wouldn't that mean all 3 pairs would be missing?
No, because if the 3rd went out when the storm passed, they wouldn't have needed their oil
Oh, I didn't know you
skin
said after. Okay.
rain gear.
You cracked the case. So the clock on the kitchen wall had stopped.
Oh.
And there was a single set of oilskin remaining hanging, which indicated that one of the lighthouse keepers, who apparently likely was Donald MacArthur.
Now, how do they know who stayed behind?
Because I think it's because they keep logs,
Oh, shit.
sort of like in Star Trek.
Oh, my God. I loved Star Trek.
So this is Captain Catherine Janeway of the USS Starship Enterprise. That's not actually true. She was the captain of the Voyager. God, that was a good... Anyway.
That was your favorite. I liked The Next Generation. That was
Right.
mine.
And he was the Enterprise man?
Correct.
We'll pick you up.
Jean-Paul Picard.
Oh, yes.
Wasn't that his name? Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
No, Jean-Luc Picard. Oh my God.
All right. So anyway, they did see that this one coat was there, and they thought it likely belonged to Donald MacArthur, and they think that this indicated that he had actually left the lighthouse in a hurry without his coat. So not what you thought, which was he waited for a sunny day to go explore.
Good call. Also, though, what I think I was going to say, the reason the 2 were in the log book and he wasn't is because he left in a hurry. So
I see.
So that follows that.
So Joseph Moore decides he's going to rush back and report that the lighthouse was deserted. So somebody is rushing finally.
Finally, yes.
So Captain Harvey then sent Monroe plus 3 volunteer seamen back to the island to continue the search and basically maintain the lighthouse. So I guess he was like basically replacing the team
If we got to go back on the clock
with 4
here.
new people, right? Well, 3 new
3,
people plus
1.
Joseph.
Right.
So now we're still on December 26th, but now it's the afternoon. So a thorough search of the lighthouse and the island was conducted by Joseph and the other 3 people who volunteered. But they found no trace of the keepers. Now the 3 keepers who were supposed to be there was James Ducat. He was the principal keeper. Thomas Marshall was the assistant to the regional manager. And Donald MacArthur was the occasional keeper.
That was the title.
That's what it says, yeah.
Wow.
So now, however, they did observe signs that there was recent violent weather.
I thought you were going to say violence. Well, hence the rain gear being taken.
Hence, ergo. So at the Western Landing platform, which was about 100 feet above sea level, there was a supply box that had been smashed open, and its contents were strewn all about.
Was anything missing, could they tell?
So I don't know if things were missing, but the iron railings on the on the platform were bent and twisted.
From the storm?
Apparently. Part of the railway track for the tramway, I guess, which was maybe what they used to take supplies back and forth, was torn up from the concrete, and a large rock weighing about a ton had become dislodged. So obviously something was going on there.
Yeah, a scuffle. Just a slight scuffle.
Well, I think it was a storm.
Well, I don't know about...
What, you think they're King Kong? A scuffle, they were fighting and they just happened to move a ton
Well, I don't
stone?
know what kind of storms are they having out there in 1900?
What kind of people do you think are moving stones, having fights? Ripping up railways?
Goliath.
So some of the ground had been ripped away from the cliff top 200 feet above sea level, and a life buoy that had been secured near the landing was missing, and its ropes were all shredded as if torn away by force.
Teeth. Claws.
So these clues pointed not to a monster, but to an extreme storm or wave event. So, which tsunamis, that's terrifying to me.
But Scotland doesn't get tsunamis
I'm just
or
saying
hurricanes. I'm just saying.
No mega canes?
I'll see you in 2070, and we're going to be getting them, I assure you.
So that evening, Captain Harvey sent a telegram from his ship. See, a telegram. I knew they existed.
You're right.
Back to this Northern Lighthouse board. And he said, quote, "A dreadful accident has happened at the Flannans," which is the island. "The clocks were stopped, and other signs indicated that the accident must have happened about a week ago.
Oh.
Poor fellows. They must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane." End quote. So he seems to have it all figured out. The relief keepers stayed on the island to keep the lighthouse in operation while Captain Harvey returned to the port to await further instructions on what to do. So now, December 29th. So I guess the Northern Lighthouse Board superintendent, Robert Moorhead, which reminds me of Agnes Moorehead. Who's that? That was Samantha Stevens' mother on Bewitched.
I did not know that was her last name.
Yeah. Robert Moorhead arrives on the island to conduct an official investigation into these disappearances. So Moorhead has personally recruited, he had personally recruited all three of the missing men, and he knew them very well. So he examined the evidence and the remaining clothing. Notably, one set of the outdoor gear was again left behind, consistent with Joseph Moore's observation, what he told them when he ran back down, the only man with a sense of urgency.
Right.
Moorhead determined that Marshall and Ducat likely ventured out onto the West Landing during this storm that must have happened, while MacArthur, the one who left without his coat, probably rushed out after them when they did not return. Moorhead noted that leaving the lighthouse unattended violated the rules, which indicated that the men must have felt like there was an urgent need to go out there together. After surveying the storm damage at the West Landing, he concluded that, quote-unquote, an extra-large sea, which is basically what they mean when they say that to mean a giant wave, struck the island on December 15th. I was I was making a point to say that because I had mentioned a tsunami and you had said that that's impossible. They don't have them.
I maintain that. A large wave does not mean...
You're right. You're right.
I'm not saying that Scotland can't have rough seas or large waves or horrific storms.
You're not saying that. Don't get me wrong. Well, I've got you wrong. Anyway, he did say a giant wave, he thinks, hit the island on December 15th, and he basically thought that it swept all 3 men into the sea. That's freaking nuts.
Oh, it's terrifying. And didn't you say this lighthouse was on the cliff? That's what he's saying, that he thinks they fell right off the
150
cliff.
feet up.
Insane. How was that safe?
It's obviously not. But imagine how high that wave was.
Well, yes, I agree with that.
But
if
it was a tiny wave compared to what Talia has.
God.
Her knowledge of tsunamis says otherwise.
I have done extensive research and watched video footage of tsunamis.
Wow.
And I regret it every time because then I have a nightmare or something. But it is most fascinating to me.
Well, fine. So obviously, you know, his report, like, it brought some closure on the administrative level of, like, what do we think happened here? Put something down, you know, whatever. But the fact that there's no witnesses and no bodies, that was, you know, still unnerving for a bunch of people. When Moorhead's official investigation had happened, like I said, it was thorough, but ultimately it could only infer what happened.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say.
What is it?
That we don't know that a wave did this.
Yeah, you're right. It could have been a scuffle. So he did carefully inspect the scene. The lighthouse, everything was in order. The lamp had been cleaned and refilled. And there were the preparations for the next lighting. They were done and like ready to go. So that indicated that the men had completed their morning duties on the morning of December 15th. So then down at the West Landing, like I said, he found what he thought to be dramatic evidence of storm damage. And from these observations, he had deduced that during the afternoon of the 15th, all these men went out to secure all of their equipment during this storm. And it was such a crazy storm that apparently what he thinks is a large wave must have come out of the sea and washed all 3 men out into sea.
Poor fellows.
Right. Now, the families of these keepers and the general public, they did not fully sort of just accept this because they still thought like, you know, it was a mystery, and I know that people love a good mystery.
They sure do.
Right.
As do we.
So the fact that there were no bodies and no witnesses left room for the imagination, and so newspapers started printing stories that were speculating wildly about what could have happened. So, you know, like I said, obviously there were a bunch of just wild stories and things that could, you know, that people were saying could have happened. Obviously a lot of like folklore and sea monsters, mermaids, maybe a nice siren or two, something like that.
What's a siren?
Kind of like a mermaid, but they sing sailors to their death.
Wow.
How do you not know this?
I don't.
I believe you, but how don't you?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about folklore.
Yeah.
It's never really enthralled me.
Right.
Yeah.
So over the decades, this mystery has been revisited by historians and researchers, and there has been some new light that has been shed on the incident, and this new light has helped to debunk some of the myths. One significant contribution was made by author Mike Dash, who examined the case for a newspaper, and Dash investigated the alleged lighthouse logbook entries for the 12th through the 15th of December of that year that everybody disappeared. And these entries described that severe storms were happening. It also described that there were some unusual behaviors being exhibited by the keepers, such as one man had been reportedly crying in fear, and all 3 were said at some point to have been praying. And the final log entry stated, this is in a quote here, "Storm ended, Sea calm. God is over all. End quote.
Well, to me, that sounds like all's well that ends well.
Well, and I think everyone can agree you're wrong.
And three men
because
praying.
they were never seen again.
In terms of, I don't think it was then a storm that did this because they were then okay.
Well, listen to this. Modern analysis revealed these log entries were complete fabrications.
Get the hell out of here.
And they got added to the story long after 1900.
So they didn't even exist.
That's what complete fabrications mean. Well, not the men, the logs.
No,
yeah, I'm thinking I don't know how literal now you're taking this. There is no lighthouse at all. No, there is. So in reality, the lighthouse log had normal entries up until the 13th of December, but there was nothing strange in the log entries, so nothing scandalous. Nobody crying, nobody praying, nobody
praying, I was going to say
talking to the mermaids.
No harm in praying. I mean, I don't know why that was standing out, that the men can't pray unless there's some weird shit going on.
They were saying because they were all scared of something. They were praying in fear.
The inference, but you don't have to pray because you're fearful is all I'm saying. You can be praying and be happy. And not scared.
I don't think this is ever going to make it.
Oh my God. Well, that's ridiculous.
To be an episode.
Well, that I don't agree with.
So later, researchers, they focused on the geography and the science of this island. And they thought that it supported the rogue wave theory. So the island's west landing sits on a steep-sided, narrow gorge, ending in a sea cave, which, how lovely. A sea cave?
A little spooky.
I guess, but it sounds magical to me.
Yeah.
So storm waves funneled into this cut, and they could explode upward.
Explode?
With great force.
Well, check.
How about it? So one analysis pointed out that the assistant keeper, Thomas Marshall, had previously been fined 5 shillings for an incident where the equipment was lost in a storm. And this detail, uncovered by a researcher named James Love, suggested that Marshall would have been especially eager to secure those outdoor, like all the outdoor gear during bad weather to avoid another fine. And the fact that he had this motivation adds weight to the theory that Marshall and the principal keeper, Ducat, went out despite the storm, leading to this accident. Modern commentators agree that the most likely explanation remains that a combination of bad weather and the keeper's sense of duty resulted in their deaths, which is a tragic but completely normal scenario. So, of course, because the men were never found, it will always, though, remain a mystery. So, a couple of fun little stories, or not stories, but fun little interpretations of what could have happened. So, some of the speculations that are more colorful were some speculated that it was a giant sea serpent.
Sounds nice.
Right. Or a monstrous seabird.
Ooh.
Had come and snatched the man off the island, which I guess was an idea that was more suited to the Middle Ages, because they used to like their monsters back then. Sea monsters and such. There be monsters out there, or whatever they used to say. Others wondered if the keepers had maybe been abducted by a ghost ship. Perhaps it was the cursed Phantom of the Seven Hunters, for which the islands were nicknamed.
Oh.
This ghost ship theory imagined that a spectral crew spirited the lighthouse men away, and there were even suggestions of foreign spies or pirates that landed on the rock and kidnapped the keepers. Now, why the hell would they do that?
I don't know, man. I mean,
I didn't expect you to, but
I think it's fascinating when you think of all of the interpretations and like how we've talked about this before, obviously, but like how these myths are born and just kind of who thinks this stuff up and like gets these theories out there and going and
Slender Man.
right.
So obviously, those are some whimsical theories, but sadly, we're never gonna know.
No. Well, may the men rest in peace. I don't suspect obviously they're not still with us, but even back in January of 1901, I don't think they were with us.
I agree.
Yeah.
So very unfortunate.
Can you imagine the survivor's guilt of the man, I can't think of his name, that was not there, the fourth man who came back?
Joseph Moore. I don't even know. I don't think I would have that.
What?
I mean,
I freaking would.
I don't think. He didn't do anything wrong.
Of course not. That's not what survivor's guilt is. I'm not suspecting. I'm not suggesting.
Right. Well, what I mean, though, is like I remember back from our literal first episode ever when we talked about that man's survivor's guilt. I don't even remember who the name of the man was.
Well, in the Dyatlov Pass?
Yes.
Yeah.
The guy who like hurt his back and then
Yes.
he had to go back to the town or whatever. I can see there because that was out of the ordinary. Like he was planning on going and something happened and he didn't go. This man was just purely taking his turn.
Right.
Just like all of them get to do.
Right.
So it was a normal thing.
Okay. Well, in that case.
But I respect that you would have it.
Oh my, that would haunt me forever. Forever. I wouldn't be right again.
Oh. Okay. Oh. How would we even tell the difference?
Oh, that's so funny.
All right. I hope this is not anybody's first time listening to this.
We were jovial, that's all. Not about this disappearance.
No, certainly not.
Or these disappearances,
No.
I should say.
But, I mean, I still think it would be a beautiful place to visit, to be completely honest.
I totally agree. God rest these three souls.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, from what I saw, I mean, nothing ever happened to any of the people who took over for them.
Uh-huh.
So.
They were safe and sound.
Right. But, I mean.
Awful.
I would say, you got to be freaking careful when you're doing that.
Absolutely.
But anyway.
Well, good job.
It wasn't my best work, but it was just something off the beaten path of
I agree.
Here's something,
don't normally
fascinating
talk about.
that happened.
Even how many years, centuries ago that it
Yes.
took place, I think was lovely that you did one from a different area. From a different era.
Well, it is also a different area than we're in. We're not in Scotland, so a different area and era.
Right.
So, have you ever been to an actual lighthouse?
In like New Jersey and
That's fine.
in Maine.
Okay.
I don't
was just
think
wondering.
anywhere else. What about
I
you?
don't think I have.
Yes, you have.
I don't think so. Have you actually been up like where you can look out of it?
Yes. And if I'm not mistaken,
You say that very solemnly. Yeah.
they're just not my favorite.
Which is mind-blowing because it represents everything you like. And the only distinction is I brought it up.
Oh my gosh. False. I want to say also Rhode Island, but I might be making that up. Or maybe Connecticut. I want to say one of
Utah.
Like, for instance, while we're talking about it, that new book I said I started today, Wild Dark Coast, and this father and his kids, they live on this, uninhabited now island, and there's a lighthouse, and one of the daughters comments like, the family lives in the lighthouse, she does not and hasn't. And I thought to myself, well, that sounds lovely. Like, I don't even know where the hell she lives. I think she lives among the seals or something, it said. But also sounds nice to me.
That does sound nice.
She pretty much is always in the water. She swims with them. They're very playful and adorable. I would not want to be in that lighthouse.
Yeah, that's absolutely mind-blowing to me, but I stand corrected.
I think they're too narrow. I think that's what it's about.
I know there'd be a lot of steps, and that would suck.
Yeah,
After I gorge myself, and then I have to get to my bed. Who needs the hassle of that?
Well, you could just flop on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, if anybody's still there, thank you for sticking around.
This was nice.
It's been an exercise in, what would it be? An exercise
Patience.
Yes. An exercise in patience. So we thank you all for your patience.
Yes, always with us every time.
Hopefully at least you chuckled or something. Who knows? I'm done now. So, all right, everybody, listen, as always,
Stay safe.
And stay chill.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody. You've just listened to Chillworthy. Thank you for joining us on this latest episode. While we strive to keep our discussions engaging and lighthearted, we also wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the real lives and events that are at the heart of these stories.
We try to approach each topic with a sense of curiosity and respect, fully aware of the impact these events have had on the individuals and their loved ones. Our goal is to honor their memories by keeping their stories alive and shedding light on the mysteries that surround them.
If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, and don't forget to join us on the next episode of Chillworthy.